All right, are there more questions than answers on this current 2025 South Carolina team? We break it down. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic start to your week and a great Monday, like I always say, if that's even possible. We have a great episode for you today. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, let's get into today's show. And there's a lot of things we're going to get to. It's kind of a grab bag episode of a bunch of different stuff. But it's a Monday show. We're going to start with football. Even though we are in May, it is May 12th. And we're going to talk a little football here because of a little bit of an uproar that I saw on social media, which is, where uproars go to live for sure. And today was no different. And that is because Josh Pate released his new and his first, Josh Pate post-spring top 20 poll. And it's a power rating, all that kind of stuff. On the list, he had South Carolina at 18. The two biggest gripes that I saw from this entire list were South Carolina and Georgia. Georgia was at 11, which is about as low as they've been I've ever seen, or I've seen as of recently, maybe in the entire Kirby Smart era since like 2017. And then you have South Carolina, who's at 18. Now, here's the entire list. I'll tell you the entire list first. But my question is, are there more questions than answers on this team? And is that why? Talk to Josh about this. And one of the things that I was kind of pushing him on is, listen, if you are looking at this South Carolina team and you have them at 18, one of his main points was I have them 4 spots lower, 18, than they finished last season. That's not some like egregiously low take. And if you think about it, going into this year, we know Lenore Sellers is capable of being the best quarterback in the country. We are completely sold on that. But around him, there's a lot of question marks at receiver. There's a lot of potential answers. Don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks on the interior offensive line. A lot of potential answers. A lot of current questions. And then on defense. And defense is where I think you get the most. Dylan Stewart can be an absolute freak. Like, Dylan Stewart can be a game breaker in terms of a disruptive pass rusher, guy off the edge that blows up plays constantly. He can be, I'm not comparing him to him, so hear me out, but he can be eventually, or even this year, a Clowney level type player where he has that type of impact on games. Again, not comparing the two, not saying he's the next Jadeveon Clowney, anything like that. But if you look at the ranking or where he came from out of high school, he's a lot closer to where Clowney was than Kyle Kennard. Kyle Kennard was not ranked like that at all. So I think that if you look at that, like that's where you feel strongest about your defense. I personally think the secondary is going to be really good. But guys, we've talked about this a whole bunch. At every single level, you lost not just key pieces, veteran pieces with veteran leadership and also a ton of snaps. Now, here's the thing, and this is what I keep going back to. South Carolina didn't go into the portal almost at all at linebacker. South Carolina went into the portal at a bunch of different positions. Went ahead and addressed the running back position, right? Offensive line, interior offensive line. Went ahead and got several defensive linemen, right? I think you bring in a safety kid from NC State. Like, there's a lot of places they went to address. Linebacker was not one of them. Defense in general, you have more bodies to replace. right? You look at you look at the people that were drafted, right? All 5 players drafted were defensive players. So like, I get that you are going to be really good offensively, but the question of do you have more questions and answers, I think as of this point is a fair one to ask. Like going into May 12th, May 13th, whenever you're listening to this, yeah, I think it's a fair question. I think there's going to be a lot of answers that we're going to see, and I'm real excited to see who they are. Right? I think there's a lot of good players that we're going to emerge from this roster, because if there's one thing we have seen from this staff, and I say it ad nauseum, is, man, they do a really good job, arguably better than anyone else with the talent they have, at going into a season and developing people and developing players that often overlooked into great players. There's one thing I'm really confident in. It's Clayton White in the defense, right? Like Clayton White has been, you could make the case, the best defensive coordinator in the SEC over the last 4 years. Led the SEC in turnovers, put kids in the league, done really well no matter who his players are on that roster. Lost several 5-star guys that went to go play elsewhere. Lost several guys to the draft to go to the NFL draft. Still, every year, put on a really good show and was one of the best players one of the best coordinators in the SEC, if not the country, right? But again, I feel like it's a fair question to ask. I will also say this, though. Not going into the portal and feeling like you need to address, like going into like it was a strong receivers group last year and crop of receivers that they brought in. But at the same time, like, you could have stopped at 3. You definitely could have stopped at 4. You brought in 5 dudes, like dudes that can play like right away, on top of some like talent that you already had on that roster. And you are not going to convince me that you needed all those receivers to be the difference makers. Like, hear me out when I say this. Think about like Ohio State has been really good when they had some of the best receivers in the country. Okay. I look at like Bama. Bama had like the best receiving class I've ever seen. 2018, 2017, those years you had like Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, who's the guy that won the Biletnikoff that year? Number 4. I don't know why I can't think of his name now. Devontae Smith is on that as well. But you had 4 guys that were all like top 15 picks. Jerry Jeudy. You had 4 guys that were all top 15 picks on that roster. They didn't win a national championship in 2018, right? They didn't win one in 2019 when they were all there. Like, Ohio State didn't win a national championship until this year. The last one they won was 2014. They've competed. Like, LSU had a great receiving room. They had 2 main guys. But, like, you're not convincing me that you had to go out and get, like, arguably the best receiving core you've had maybe in program history when it's all said and done. We'll see. But, like, if you needed other positions, if you needed linebackers, if you needed defensive linemen, they would have gone and got them. Point blank, period. So what that tells me more than anything is, while we're looking at this, yeah, I think there's a lot more questions than answers defensively for the South Carolina team that we know of right now. That is not what I personally think the attitude or mindset or evaluation and assessment is inside the 4 walls of the program. I don't think that's what the coaching staff thinks. That's me personally. I'm speculating here. But, like, I don't think you put that much emphasis on some other positions in high school recruiting and the portal if you were that concerned about the questions you needed to answer defensively and in other defensive positions. Okay, when we come back, I'm going to tell you just how out of whack people think this entire Josh Pate ranking is. He's going to come on here at some point, not today, and he's going to defend this because we've been kind of going back and forth all day about it. But I don't disagree with some of the stuff he has. I'm going to get back into it. We're going to talk about his top 20 when we return. Before we go, do want to give a quick shout out once again to our friends at Monarch Money. Listen, do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? I did it today, if we're being honest. And I'll whisper, even though my girlfriend's not here, because if you're watching this, you can see what I'm doing. But right now, We are in the midst of some pretty big purchases that your boy is making. And you look at your bank account and you say, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, room shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, spending, all that in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you can start building wealth. Huge difference there. Listen, when I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. As somebody that's in the middle of planning a ton of long-term goals right now, don't repeat that. Monarch Money has been there for me every step of the way. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Guys, we'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks right after this. Uh-oh. All right. Excuse me. Celsius went down the wrong pipe. Welcome back in. Thank you for joining us for the show today. We just cleaned the apartment. Things look really nice right now. I'm very excited. Pepper is snoozing. Oh, she heard me. Let's get back into it. Josh Pate's poll. Now, Josh Pate is not the end-all, be-all of college football people per se. I love Josh. He's a good personal friend, and I personally think he does a phenomenal job, and I think he's one of the more objective and smart people in this business who goes out of his way to get well-read on as many things as possible. So, talking about that, here's the thing. I'm looking at this, and there are some questions, man, that I have. I'm going to read you what he has. 1, you're not going to like this. Don't hang up. Don't turn the show off. These are not my rankings. These are Josh Pate's. Here's his post-spring 2025 rankings. 1, Clemson. 2, Texas. 3, Penn State. 4, Alabama. 5, LSU. 6, Notre Dame. 7, Oregon. 8, Ohio State. 9, Florida. 10, Oklahoma. 11, Georgia. 12, Miami. 13, Arizona State. 14, Texas A&M. 14, Texas A&M. 15, Illinois. 16, Ole Miss. 17, Georgia Tech. 18, South Carolina. 19, Michigan. 20, Texas Tech. Now, here is my response to this. I personally think, if I'm giving you my honest opinion, I think he got the top 3 right. I do. I think Clemson, on paper, looks like, on paper, they are set up to be the best team in the country going into the season. Now, hear me out before you get mad. I don't care if they're preseason number 1 because this team has beaten their ass 2 of the last 3 years. And they can absolutely do it again in November. Okay? So them being number 1, in my personal belief, has way more to do with the talent they have coming back. That's projected NFL talent. And also that is they're playing the ACC, right? Clemson, if Clemson was lining up to play Georgia week 1 like they were last year, I don't think they'd be ranked number 1. I don't. Texas at 2, I get it. I get it. You've lost 23 players or 24 players in the past 2 NFL drafts, but they are going to have a lot of talent there. Schedule is more difficult than last year. You get Ohio State in the non-con, but whatever. Penn State at 3. Listen, you guys have heard me say this before. Penn State at 3, Notre Dame at 6. Those 2 teams are going to be there in those spots in the top 10 from now until forever. Just flat out. There were no 2 programs in the country that were going to benefit more from the new playoff format than those 2 teams. Why is that? Because we all know that if you can get to 10-2, you're going to make the playoff. Those 2 teams live at 10-2. In my personal opinion, I think they should have to play in the first round every year. Like, the schedule's not difficult enough for either of them to not lose more than 2 games. I mean, obviously, what is going on? Obviously, Notre Dame doesn't even play in a conference. It's so stupid to me. Okay, but I think those 2 teams, they're going to stay there. Bama, LSU at 4 and 5. I will tell you right now, one of those teams is a pretender. I don't know which one it is yet, but one of those 2 teams is a pretender. I think Bama's going to be really good because I think they'll be really good defensively. They got a lot to replace offensively. At quarterback, it's a lot of production, whether he's good or not, and they also have a lot of offensive linemen they're going to replace. Oregon at 7, Ohio State at 8, sure. Florida and Oklahoma at 9 and 10. That's where we start to get a little bit weird. I got a hard time thinking that Florida is going to be a better team than Georgia this year, especially with the schedule they have. Remember, Georgia gets every one of those tough games they had last year on the road. They get them at home. The schedule's still tough. You got Texas, you got Bama, you got Ole Miss. All 3 of those games are at home, right? Like you lose Clemson in the start of the year. You got to go on the road to Georgia Tech, which I think is going to be a tougher game than they've had in years past going to Atlanta. But you don't even have that one as a true road game. So, like, Florida, one of your toughest games. Georgia Tech, that's a ranked opponent. Those 2 games are both neutral site games, right? Like, they're playing the Georgia Tech game this year in Mercedes-Benz. Who else they have? They don't play LSU. They don't play Oklahoma. They don't play A&M. Those are all your other ranked. They don't play South Carolina. Those are all your other ranked teams in the SEC. So Georgia being at 11, it feels shocking because I don't think we're used to seeing Georgia outside the top 10. But if you start thinking about it, man, like, they lost a ton of players to the draft again. They had 11 players drafted. I mean, like, you can sit here and say, "Oh, yeah, it's plug and play." And I saw one of my friends, Graham Coffey, who covers Georgia for Dog Central. He brought up the point. He said, "Listen, I think Georgia is going to end up being in a situation where they have the highest, blue chip ratio they've ever had on a team this year for 2025, which is scary." But he compared. He goes, "This is the most confident I felt about a team going into the preseason since 2021. Obviously, they won a national championship in 2021. That 2021 team also had to replace 7 players that went to the draft, but off the defense. But they also did that with a bunch of former 5-stars. After them, you get Miami at 12, Arizona State at 13, A&M at 14 is tough. Illinois, which feels like a new rival, even though it's not, is at 15. Ole Miss at 16, Tech at 17, and South Carolina at 18. South Carolina's ahead of Michigan and Texas Tech. Blue blood, new blood type thing. I wouldn't say Texas and new blood, but they're going to spend a lot of money in the portal, that's for sure. I look at this, and I'm thinking, if I'm South Carolina, who's on the schedule? Well, Clemson is never coming off the schedule. Bama, LSU. Those are 3 top 5 teams that are on the schedule. Oklahoma, top 10 team. They're on the schedule. A&M, 14. Ole Miss, 16. So you're telling me that you have half of your schedule, once again, that is ranked in the top 20 and ranked ahead of you in the – I mean, there's no rest for the wicked. There is no rest for this team ever, ever, ever. And like I said this on one of the first shows I did last year, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. The schedule is the schedule. I don't think that South Carolina fans give a blank about the schedule because it's always been the schedule. But when I look at this team and I think 18, I think I said to you on this show multiple times, I was like, I don't think you're going to see anybody having South Carolina outside the top 15. Lo and behold, my good buddy Josh Pate has him at 18. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Josh Pate's an idiot because I don't think he is an idiot. I think he's probably got some reason behind this. But I do think 18 is too low. And I think when you look at what's coming back, the schedule is tough for sure, but one of the greatest equalizers now in all of sports. It's like when you talk about baseball, which we're going to talk about after the break. When you talk about baseball, right? You have look. You could be a really bad team if you've got a pitcher, if you got a kid that can hold off an offense. Anytime you get into a weekend series, you got a chance, right? Like you got a chance. And quarterback is very similar to that at this point because of a guy like Lenore Sellers, and I am so hesitant to ever bring this comparison up, but the closer we get to the season, the more I'm probably going to do it. I look at like what Cam Newton had around him. Cam Newton had one player drafted on that offense. Darvin Adams, like a 5th-round receiver at receiver. That was the only other player he had on his entire offense that was drafted. There's so much more talent on this roster for South Carolina than there was for him. And we saw him go through that gauntlet of teams like LSU that was legitimate powerhouse always. Georgia beat him by like 21 points. And then you had obviously Alabama and that huge come-from-behind win. Like, you could say that the SEC is deeper now, obviously, because of the added teams to it, and they've added 4 teams to conference expansion since that 2010 season that Auburn had. But the point I'm trying to make is that with Lenora Sellers as quarterback, you have a chance, and every single time that whistle blows and they tee up that effing football on Saturday, as long as he has got his chin strap buckled up and ready to go and he's playing, you have a chance to win every game you play. Flat out, period. So we're going to talk about this a lot. I'm going to get Josh on the show. We'll bring him on here and yell at him. You guys send any questions you have for him. Mainly like, are you okay? Who hurt you? Why would you do this to us? Those are all fair questions, I think, at this point. But that's the reaction we have currently to his post-spring top 25 rankings. And when we come back, we're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to talk about one player who signed a free agent signing, as well as some baseball talk. So make sure you stick around. We'll be right back. All right, let's close out today's show with a fun one here. Some good news, and that is Dale Von Campbell, number 15 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe number 15 in your hearts. I don't know. He was great, though, last year. Came up real big against Mizzou. A lot of people. But good news for him today. He signed a undrafted free agent contract with the Los Angeles Chargers. Thought that was really cool. That's a kid I thought would stick somewhere. Big kid, physically talented, physically gifted, and big enough to play in the what do you call it? In the NFL. Like he's just that big. And by all means had a pretty good year last year at South Carolina. Like not, groundbreaking or anything like that. But guy that went to Illinois for 3 seasons, then went to Nevada for 2. 60 career games, man, in college, and it was really big at times last year with South Carolina. He led the team with 26 yards per reception last year, which is kind of insane. But good for him for getting a contract or at least signing and sticking around with the Chargers. Here's the other thing, and we don't need to get too much into it because we're going to talk about it more this week, I'm sure. The long, painful misery that has been this baseball season is almost over. It's almost over. Okay. Now, you know what? Real quick, let's get some positive news. South Carolina is a national seed in the softball tournament, and is hosting a regional this weekend, which is pretty awesome. So, oh boy, I'm pretty pumped about that. Obviously, you guys are pretty pumped about that as well. Here's the cool thing is that, listen, this is the deepest the conference has ever been. And I've said this before. You guys know this better than anybody. This is probably the deepest, not just the conference has ever been, but getting not only a national seed to host a regional, because at this point of the season, you won 40 games. You went 40-15. You kind of expected that at this point. It was a phenomenal first year. You could probably argue this was better than Lamont Paris's first year last year in basketball, which is really, really saying something. And again, just expanding the brand and having a deeper and deeper athletic department, not just football, not just women's basketball, but obviously really, really good, more than respectable in several other things. Now, this softball team is number 8 overall. Now, that doesn't sound – it sounds pretty great. Like you're a national seed, which means you would host not only regionals, but if you win regionals, which you're favored to do, you would host super regionals as well, which is a very big deal. As long as you can play at home as long as possible. That's a really, really big deal in order to get to get to Oklahoma City. Now, this is one of the best tournaments in all of college sports. Like it's a phenomenal tournament. This regional, you have North Florida, Elon, and Virginia. Virginia's a 2 seed. North Florida, former Peach Belt member, alongside Georgia College, USC Aiken, Francis Marion. Some of those schools, USC Upstate used to be in there as well. But North Florida, now in Division I, they end up getting a bid in here as well. So pretty good. I think there's the numbers all time. You look at this, South Carolina is 34-5 all time against Virginia, which is insane. And they beat them twice to start the year as well. So top 8 national seed, you have 6 teams in the SEC out of the top 8. I think all 4 of the top 4 were from the SEC. Crazy loaded and deep year for the SEC in softball. But hosting a regional and then hopefully hosting a super regional after that, really big deal. Great job by South Carolina this year on the diamond. So there you go. We're not going to even talk about baseball. We'll save it for tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. You guys are fantastic. We will see you tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Gamecocks. See you then. Go Cox.